This is exercise 6A, an introduction to decimals. On page 316, we're looking at decimals and place value. Something that you guys already know in terms of place value. Can you remind me, what is place value? Xavier, what is place value?
Place value is the value of the placement of the numbers.
The value of the placement of the numbers. Yeah, can we do a little bit better on that one? Yeah, where the digit is and where that digit is tells me what that digit represents, right? So when we're looking at place value in terms of decimals, we have to keep in mind that when we go towards the right of the decimal place, we have to move forward with that. So a decimal point is used to separate the whole number from the decimal or fraction part. You guys have already done mixed numbers before. You know that, for example, if I was to have the example of 3 and let's say a half, you know it's 3 wholes, and then I have a half on the other side. But it's still part of the same number, isn't it? What we're doing is we're just representing the same thing, but with a decimal instead of a fraction on the right-hand side. So, for example, 3.5, instead of saying 3.5. Okay? When dealing with the decimal numbers, the place value table can be extended to involve tenths, hundredths, thousands, and etc. So, what it means by saying the place value table is something you guys already know. We did this at the start of the year. All we're doing is we're extending it to represent the hundredths, thousandths, tenths. You get the point, okay? So if there's a th at the end of it, it means that it's going past the decimal place. So let's just put this into example. Let's say I've got 25.34. 25.34, the first digit has a position of what? It's in the tens unit, isn't it? So tens. What's the second digit got? Yeah, just shout it out. Thank you. Ones. Now, after the decimal place, what is the first one after decimal place? Noah. Tenths. Yeah, tenths. Like this. Tenths. What's the one after the tenths? Hundredths. Hundredths. You have to say it like a snake, otherwise I will take off marks. You have to stick your tongue out like a snake. Okay, and then where does our decimal place go? Between the... Thank you very much. The ones and the tenths. Okay, so decimal place goes there. So, I'm going to write the digits down. You guys already know. So the 2, and then I have a 5. Actually, I'm going to do this so we can see. Oh. The 2, we're going to do a 5, a 3, and a 4. That's just the numbers that we've got. So if it's a tens, we know that we have to multiply by 10, right? So 2 times 10 gives us 20. Because tens means I times by 10. Ones means I times by... Good, so I get 5 times 1, which is 5. Now if I'm... Well, actually, what is a tenth? No, we know what tenths are. What is a tenth? Yes. A tenth of a whole number. Does anyone know how we'd write that as a fraction? A tenth of a whole number, yeah. Good. 1 over 10. That is a tenth. Okay? To write a tenth, we have to multiply by the number we have. So 3 times a tenth. If I'm writing 3, let's do this up here, sorry. 3 times by a tenth. Does anyone know what my answer would be? So that's 3 of 1/10, yeah? It'd be 3 over 10 or 3/10. Okay? Now you can do that the long way if you'd like. You can turn that into a multiplication of fractions by making 3 the same as 3 over 1, which we already know. And then multiplying it, same thing. We get 3/10. Okay? And so I can write over here 3/10. If a tenth is 1 over 10, okay, what is a hundredth? Say again, sorry? It's 1 over 100, thank you. Apologies to anyone watching this recording again, you're going to hear a lot. So, 1/100th. We multiply by 4 and it gives us, key? Good. and we get 4 over 100. So remember, all you need to remember is that when we move forward towards the right, moving past the ones into decimal places, you need to multiply by the 10th, or the 100th, or the 1000th. You get the point, okay? Sweet. Now, all we need to do is actually understand what the digits are and then apply that. So, what is the value of the digit 8 in the following numbers? This is pretty straightforward. So if I said, what is the value of the digit 8 over here? Same thing. What position is it in? Brody, what position is it in? Is it in the tens, ones, tenths, or hundredths? It's in the tenths, right? So if it's in the tenths, we multiply by 1 over 10. Because we'd multiply by 10 if it was in the tens, but it's in the tenths. Yeah, realistically, they probably should have picked a better name, but you get the idea. So I multiply that by tenths, or 1 over 10, and I get, oops, Lexi, what do I get? 8 over 10. Yes. Or 4 over 5. Good point. No pun intended. Now, 4 over 5, where do we get that from? You know. Good, simplified. Now, because we're looking at the place value, in this very specific situation, we won't take off marks. It's not wrong if you write 8 over 10. If the question says you need to simplify it, then yes, 100% write 4 over 5. In this specific situation, because we're writing about place values, it's okay to just write 8 over 10. What about this one over here? Kenta. Where's Kenta? I know you were here. There you are. Kenta, what position is the 8 in right there? So this one's the tenths right there. That's the hundredths. So what comes after the hundredths? So 10, 100, 1,000, right? So in this case, the 8 is in the thousandths position. Sienna, how do I write a thousandth? So we know 1/10 is 1 over 10. So 1/1000th is 1 over 1,000. Good. Our digit is still 8. So I write 8 times by 1 over 1,000, which Farah is, well done. Awesome, and we can leave it there. We don't have to simplify that further. Any questions about that? Pretty okay? Pretty straightforward? Yeah? Okay. Now, this part over here is when we're combining our understanding. This is why we're doing a joint assessment for chapter 4 and 6. It's because we're combining our understanding of the two topics. So express each of the following proper fractions and mixed numerals as a decimal. So we're changing it from proper fraction to a decimal. So 7 over 10, we're going backwards. We know 7 over 10 is 7 tenths, right? You guys remember that? So if it's 7 tenths, Taylor, go walk me through it. How'd you do that? Good. If I go back over here, we know that the tenths is in the position after the decimal place, right? So if it's in the position after the decimal place, I know that 7 tenths would go, or 7 would go in the tenths position. Let's do this one, for example. 5 over 100. It's in the hundredths, yeah? 5 over hundredths, which means that I have to put the 5 in the hundredths position. Yeah? So I would go 0 point, with a 1 after the decimal point is tenths. So we'll skip that and we'll write a, Xavier, what do we write instead?
What?
Instead of writing, because we don't want to write in the tenths, right?
No.
So what do I write in the tenths instead?
0.
Good. 0.05. Awesome. Last one here, it's a bit trickier. Like I said earlier, we're looking at mixed numbers before. So 3 and 17 over 100. Do we do anything with a 3, Tamika? No, we just leave it there. And we focus on the 17 over 100. 17 over 100 is in the what position? You're right, the 1 would be in the tenths and the 7 would be in the hundredths. But if I take it from a more broad perspective, the 17 is in the hundredths position. The way I think about it is the number that's last, in this case 7, needs to be in the hundredths position. So I would go 3.7 over here, and the only one you can fill in is 1. So 3.17. Any questions about that? The only other kind of question that you need to know how to do is ascending and descending numbers. So arrange the following decimal numbers in ascending order, ascending meaning smallest to largest. How would I approach this, Caitlin? How would I approach this question that says we're looking for smallest to largest? So I can't hear you, Caitlin. Yep, the smallest. So let's focus on the whole numbers and focus on the numbers that are the smallest. So I've got, there we go. I've got 2 point something, 2 point something. I've got 7 point something, 7 point something, and then 3 point something, 3 point something. So let's focus on the 2 point something. So let's focus on these two. Taylor, which one's bigger or smaller out of these two? 2.37 smaller because? Good, we look from left to right. So the smallest number here would be 2.37. The next one would be? Good, 2.73. What's the next number we look at, Karake? Do we look at the 3 point somethings or the 7 point somethings? Good, we look at these two. Which one's smaller? Good, 3.27. And then? Good, 3.72. And finally, we look at the last two. Georgina, which one's smaller out of these two? 7.23 and 7.32.
7.2.
Good, 7.23. And finally, our largest number is 7.32. Do I have any questions about how we do this? No? Awesome.